No, I can walk. That's actually better for me to stand
Okay.
more than anything else. Alright. Just don't want to do push-ups or anything that. If we want to go into the first article, continue with Article 7 to Article 6 of class loads in preparation. It is pretty much the same information from before for the first page, with the exception that I added on the very last sentence and on the first page. Planning period shall be considered separate during the student contact hours and exclusive from collaboration time.
Where is that?
It's in bold. I'm just trying to show you what is different from the last county proposal. Second piece on there, on the last page, excuse me, the second page, page 2. Page 2, number 2. Meetings shall be defined as events directed by any federal, state, district, or school personnel other than a teacher. Meetings are limited to 6 to 8 meetings per calendar month, with no more than 2 meetings per week during planning time. In the event that there's more than 2 meetings scheduled within a week, IEP and RTI meetings would take priority. So there is difference in the amount of days considered. The numbers have dropped to a more reasonable level and be it would be a positive thing for both the teachers and the district, able to do their in order for you to do your IEP meetings and everything else that's required at the district level, yet at the same time have a sufficient amount of planning period for all the employees. Trying to streamline this instead of repeating every single piece over here in arguments from there.
So the changes were during student contact hours, 6 to 8 meetings per calendar month, 2 meetings per week.
2 meetings.
Yes.
It'll help you during your caucus and figure out what's different than the last time or something of the sort. We believe that is a reasonable request. And we were looking at the issues and solutions document from 2007, 2008. I'll provide that to you via email. And one of the things that we noticed when there was a change when it came to the planning periods, where it was at one time, there was planning during the day. And because of budget cuts and restrictions in order to help out, it was specifically said that this reason for doing it is only temporary based on the economy. And there was anticipation to go back to having a planning period during the day. Is there anything else I was missing from there?
Yeah. Not that I can remember off the top of my head, but I believe those were,
Yes.
yeah.
I don't doubt that, but the financial information that you hear from Tallahassee is today's budgets are actually less than 2005, almost 10 years. You know, real dollars.
I wouldn't disagree in essence that our illustrious governor and our people in Tallahassee have not been up to snuff when it comes to education funding per se, but I do believe Nassau County is on the rebound. It is reflective on there. You have more and more kids coming to this district. their funds have been replenished, and the time is now. I mean, especially right now, we are an A district, we want to stay in A district, and we don't wanna put any more, we're trying to reduce the amount of stress when it comes to the teachers as we speak, not put any more stress on them. Time and time again, we have been told by our teachers, one of the number one priorities for us to be at the table today is planning. As a matter of fact, when we were talking about planning itself and talking to potential members for the past couple days, we had an increase in 2 days of 35 new members because they are excited for our union to come together and try to go for planning. So just talking to a handful of teachers for only 2 days during the post-planning, that was a priority, and 35 people signed up as members for a year. That's a huge spike.
I'm thinking just the number one, planning for high schools, I think that costs $11. I'll have to give it to Sue.
I think he's leaving that to you.
I'm sorry, Eric.
What did, we were just discussing, what did you just say?
I think the cost of implementing number one, in high schools, I heard a figure of it of over $1 million to hire more people to cover that.
One of the pieces of when we were talking to Sue, she's saying by July 18th, she is going to have the official funds and where things are in place. And for the data that we have seen, and why I will probably display it at that time, we believe the district has a reason, we can come to a reasonable conclusion that it is possible. Okay. So I'm not gonna, at that time, you'll understand today, we're gonna be talking about language. We're not gonna be bringing financial proposals together. At that time, we will go dive more into the finance piece to it. The second proposal number 2 is annual contract language. We have gone back to our original proposal from last year. This proposal is very similar to Flagler County. It's also rather similar to Swanee, which I do believe Mr. Dietzen is well aware of. And Mr. Dietzen, didn't Swanee County obtain annual contract language?
I believe they did, and I'm not their negotiator,
Okay,
just so you know.
but you are the board attorney, you're the board attorney, correct?
That was very astute
Okay, thank you.
observation.
Okay, just making sure that I'm not saying that you are somebody else, you is an imposter
Right.
there. And what I have brought over to you, and will probably go over for the sake of the audience over here, is some information that we have from the 2 special magistrates rulings. One of them in particular, Mr. Mundale's, we're gonna talk about. And when and St. John's was awarded, the special magistrate recommended highly recommend annual contract language. Now, I'll pass that information to you.
I have it.
You do have it?
It's been rejected, hasn't it?
Not to my knowledge. The hearing, I just talked to Tammy Whitaker, the hearing to it is on the 30th as we speak. But once again, I think for a matter of record and to the audience, here's St. John's, and I will give another one to Suzanne so she has it for her. If you go to page 6, one of the things, well, before I say that, one of the things also we did is we gave Mr. Armando's resume, what I believe he's a very qualified special magistrate to rule upon this piece. So I'm passing what PERC has on their website of his resume and his qualifications, and I think he's really justified to say something like this. And so Jamie's gonna kind of read that recommendation. Excuse me. Was that? Yes, that Jamie is gonna read the recommendation for a matter of record, but, because I think it's important and also the people in the audience understand on this, that's why we're reading it out loud per se. Jamie, if you want to begin.
Article 9, Professional Employee Qualifications and Assignments. In addressing this matter, the critical question that must be answered first is whether the union's proposal conflicts with state law. At the hearing and in their briefs, Mr. Dickinson and Ms. Whitaker made passionate and compelling arguments supported by considerable documentation to support their respective positions. After a thorough review of the record and briefs, the SM believes that the union's proposal is legal. In the SM's opinion, if management's belief that the union's proposal, if adopted, would be unlawful if not in the interest and welfare of the public, is correct. Most certainly, some of the districts who have negotiated annual contract renewal language in their agreement since 2011 would have had such language successfully challenged in the courts. While it would appear that the legislation's intent in enacting the Student Success Act was to bring an end to professional service contracts such as not manifested itself in any adverse consequences for those districts that since July 1, 2011 have negotiated annual contract renewal language in their agreements. In the union's brief, Ms. Whitaker wrote, the district made much of the intent of the Florida legislature in creating the law which eliminated the ability of Florida's teachers from obtaining a PSC after July 1, 2011. However, there was no evidence that the legislation intent was to thwart the ability of local school districts from bargaining this subject. There was no evidence of a single audit criticism of school districts that have negotiated annual contract renewal language. There was no evidence that the Florida Department of Education has withheld funds from school districts as a result of negotiating annual contract language or taken any negative action against any of the school districts. The record supports the above quoted. In conclusion, if the SM's opinion that the union's proposal is lawful, the next question to be answered is whether the union's proposal has merit. As the author of 3 books,
Well, let me tell you the 3 books because we decided to get them. One of them is Managing Your Human Resources, a Partnership Approach.
Oh, what's that book?
Huh? It's old. It's not, the other one's Employee Discipline, How to Do It Right. And the other one is Effective Supervisor Handbook. What I'm trying to say is, he relatively knows his information. I think he's well versed in the practice of human resources and where it would be. He's an outstanding.
He lives in Ohio?
That's true. I don't care any state that you live in. I don't think whether you're employee in Ohio or employee of Florida. It really matters of how you run a good, effective organization. So carry on, Jamie.
on management practices, one of which was international bestseller, and having personally trained over 150,000 people in management positions from first-line supervisors to senior-level executives in the public and private sectors, the SM knows a great deal about management theory and practice. In the SM's opinion, annual contract teachers who have demonstrated that they are competent and trustworthy need to be able to teach without fear that if they incur the unwarranted ire of someone in management, i.e. the administration, that their annual contract will not be renewed. It can be argued that a teacher whose contract is not renewed, who believes the action is unwarranted, can file a grievance, and if the union believes it has merit, it can be processed through all the steps of the grievance procedure, including arbitration. While this is true in theory, the reality is quite different. Unions do not have the money to take every case to arbitration where they believe a member teacher has been the victim of de facto discharge by way of undeserved non-contract renewal. The union's proposal does not adversely affect management's ability to use their authority to not renew the contracts of teachers who, for legitimate reason or reasons, have failed to satisfactorily meet the job performance expectations and requirements. The union's proposal requires teachers to have 3 consecutive years of effective or highly effective performance evaluations, meet all eligibility requirements related to certification, highly qualified status, ESOL status, and have no documented disciplinary action during the current school year. In the SM's opinion, the proposed annual contract renewal language will have a positive impact on teacher morale, make the district more attractive to prospective teachers, and quite possibly result in teachers being more effective inside and outside of the classroom. The record shows that in the district, there have not been recent cases where annual contract teachers, 15 during the 2014-2015 school year alone, who have received effective performance evaluations did not have their annual contracts renewed for either funding or certification reasons. There is no evidence in the record to show that any of these non-renewals were for documented behavior reasons. This leads the SM to highly suspect that the bias and favoritism were factors and perhaps the sole reason for some and perhaps many of these non-renewals. When competent and trusted teachers do not have their annual contracts renewed, it undermines morale and creates a climate of fear. Such a work environment adversely affects working relationships and the quality of teaching. The SM strongly recommends that the union's proposal be adopted.
Thank you, Jamie, appreciate that.